Hi everyone! Thanks for joining me again this week for another episode of Healthy Cook Up with Dr. Soski. That's me, Dr. Marissa Soski. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor in both Oregon and California and have practices in each. For more information on naturopathic medicine, you can visit my website at www.valleynaturalmedicine.com. I don't often explain it in these videos, but if anybody has questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. And I can talk more about what naturopathic medicine is. Otherwise, we're just going to get into cooking for today. Today is another episode of Breakfast for Dinner, just because we're cooking it at dinner time, and I love breakfast. So we're going to be making a homemade granola recipe, which is tribute to my mom. She passed this on to me. It's an awesome recipe. And then a nut milk recipe, which is from my loving partner. And it's great. I love this recipe because it's really easy to make for both of them, easy to store, and it's a really healthy way to create these, and I'll talk more about that later. Tonight I'm going to be raising money for an organization called Health Leads. They help provide access to healthcare to groups and communities that have a hard time with access to healthcare and other aspects of things that affect health, so housing, clean water, and etc. So they're a really awesome organization. They could really use your support right now, so if you have it in your heart to donate in honor of today's video, that would be awesome. And there's a link there in the feed. So, all right, we'll get started. So the first things first is I'm going to set the oven to 350 degrees, because that's what we're going to start at for that's what we're going to cook the granola at. So. All right, great. So this granola recipe is very simple. At its most basic, it has 4 ingredients, and then you can add in all kinds of extra stuff, which is one of the things I love about it. So we're going to start with 2 cups of oats. So I tend to make this and oatmeal pretty often, so I like buying oats in bulk, so you can get a lot. Alright, we have 2 cups of oats, and then a couple of the extras that I like to add. So, I'm going to be adding some walnuts, which I crushed up into here, some pumpkin seeds, some sunflower seeds, and some flax seeds. So, what's important to note is that I'm not going to throw all of these into the oven with the oats and the granola all at once, because both the pumpkin seeds and the flax seeds are really thin, so they burn really easily. So I'm not going to add those in, but I will start by adding in the walnuts and the sesame seeds, because they get this really nice toasted flavor. So I'm going to add half a cup of walnuts, and then also half a cup of sesame seeds. Now I definitely go heavy on the seeds and nuts, because I really like the omegas and the protein and the fiber that they add to the granola recipe, but you can just leave it plain. You can add other things. Some other awesome things to add are like cacao nibs, which I would add at the end and not bake those at all. Coconut is really nice to add. Some dried fruit to add at the end. So you also don't have to cook any of it. You can add all the extras at the end. And then you can add as little or as much as you want. So I'm going to add that. And then we're going to add a quarter of a cup to a third of a cup of maple syrup. So you can add, if you want your granola on the sweeter side, definitely add a third. If you want it on the less sweet side, add a fourth of a cup. So I like on the less sweet side, so I'm going to add a fourth of a cup. Pour that in. Now, again, what I really love about this recipe is it can really control the ingredients. So I try not to eat any processed sugar in my diet. I recommend a lot of my patients not eat a lot of processed sugar. And it's really, really hard to find granola recipes, granola in the grocery store that doesn't have sugar added. So this is really awesome and really easy to make at home without sugar. There are now, with the whole keto movement, there are definitely more options out there. But I still think anything you buy in the store is going to be on the more processed side, and if you can make it at home, I think it's definitely a great idea. All right, so and then the next thing is a quarter cup of oil. So I melted some coconut oil. I really like coconut. I think it gives it a really good flavor. If you don't like coconut or can't have coconut, olive oil, sesame oil work well as well also. You can definitely use canola oil or vegetable oil. I just think that those oils are more processed and not as good for you, so I tend to not recommend them, but it definitely works in this recipe also. Know that each oil is going to give it a different flavor and a different taste, so you can kind of play around when you're first starting to make this to see which one you like. All right, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And that's it. And then we mix it up. And then you just want to keep mixing until all of it is fully coated. So oats are a really awesome source of fiber and B vitamins. Oats are great. And oats are inherently gluten-free unless there's cross-contamination. So gluten-free oats, when you see that in the store, it often means that it was made in a dedicated gluten-free facility, so that there wasn't any other wheat products being processed in the same place, so that there is no cross-contamination. But inherently, there is no gluten in oats. They are not wheats. All right, that's looking about mixed in. So then we're gonna grab our baking sheet. And we're gonna just lay it evenly on the baking sheet. Again, if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to add them in the chat section and I'll answer them as we go. And then you just kind of want to spread it as evenly as possible, because then it'll just cook as evenly as possible. And the awesome thing about this recipe too is that it's really easy to make in big batches. So usually when I make it for myself, I do twice the size of this batch, and so I'm making 2 full trays, and then I just don't have to make it as often. And I like putting granola on top of smoothies, so that's usually how I use it in winter. In summer. All right, that's looking pretty even. And then we will throw this in the oven. So it's going to be in the oven for a total of 20 minutes, but I set the timer for 10 because at 10 minutes, at halfway, we're going to take it out, we're going to kind of stir it up and then lay it back down flat and then cook it for another 10-ish minutes. I do like toasting my pumpkin seeds and my flax though, so what I'm going to do is add that back into the bowl and I then toast it separately just for like about 3 minutes. It doesn't need much at all. You'll actually start to hear the pumpkin seeds popping in the oven. So I'm going to do a 1/2 cup of pumpkin seeds. So as you see, I'm going heavy on the seeds because that's what I like. Pumpkin seeds. And 1/4 cup of flax seeds, just because they're so small. They really stick out. And then usually for this I'll add like a tiny bit of maple syrup and a little bit of oil onto them just so when they're in the oven they get the extra flavoring too. Just a little bit. And then we're going to mix this up. So pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, all of these seeds are high in what's called omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory acids versus omega-6 fatty acids, which are more inflammatory, meaning they lead to products in the body that create kind of an inflammatory response or an anti-inflammatory response. You need both of them in your body to function, so it's not about getting only one or the other, it's about getting the proper balance. In the standard American diet, we get a lot of omega-6 fatty acids and hardly any omega-3 fatty acids. And so we need to change that ratio to about 4 to 1 or 6 to 1. Or sorry, 3 or 4 to 1. Say 6 to 1 is like the max, but some people are getting like 20 to 1 if they're living on a standard American diet. Let me use this spatula. Get all the seeds out. Fatty fish is also a great source of omega-3 fatty acids, but your omega-6 acids come from a lot of your processed oils, so canola oil and vegetable oil, and then also your animal proteins other than fatty fish. Alright, so I'm just going to get this ready. We're not throwing this in yet, but I'm just going to spread these out a little bit. I'll also say you can also put parchment paper down underneath all this. Sorry, I should have said this at the beginning. I don't use it because I find I can get it off and I don't like wasting the parchment paper, but if you find things stick to your pans a little bit more, you can put parchment paper underneath it and then it won't stick as much, or it won't stick. All right, so that's ready. So we'll throw that in eventually, but not yet. All right, so while we're waiting for that to cook, we're gonna make our nut milk. So you're gonna start with 1 cup of almonds and soak them overnight or for at least 6 hours. So these have been soaking all day, and then you can then rinse them and strain it and rinse them. What this does is it makes the nuts a little bit softer, easier to blend, and then also it breaks down some chemicals in it called phytates, and that helps your body digest them better and makes them more nutrient available for you. So you're going to take your almonds or whatever nut. So I'm using almonds. This also works great with cashews, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts, pecans. Oftentimes I'll do a combination of nuts, so it's really nice. Different nuts kind of work differently, so you still want to soak all of them. But the harder nuts, so like an almond, for example, is harder than a walnut or a cashew. We're gonna blend them a little bit differently. So you'll see. So so we have our nuts in here, and then we're gonna do 2 cups of water. And I have some filtered water. Okay. So for your harder nuts, you're going to go on medium-high, so not quite high, kind of like that halfway point between medium and high, for about 30 seconds. And for your softer nuts, you're going to kind of go in between low and medium, so medium-low, and go for 20 seconds. And the reason is you don't want to pulverize the nuts too much, because that essentially you're just going to end up with a bunch of nut paste in your milk, and it's just going to be really murky. It's not going to be that nice kind of thin milk that we're going for. It's going to kind of be more mealy also. So blend this up for a second. It's going to get loud, so I'll probably just put you on hold for a sec. All right. So then we're going to strain this out. Now, again, when you're using the harder nuts, it's just, you can, if you need to, you can kind of press a little bit. But with the softer nut, you really don't want to press, and you're just going to scoop, and I'll show you what that looks like. Just need my spoon. There we go. Rinse my spoon out. Go. So now we get this nice nut mixture. And essentially all you have to do is kind of stir along the bottom, because the holes will get clogged. I'm using a pretty fine mesh because I like it a little bit thinner without less of the sediment in it. But if you use a thicker one, you'll get more sediment. You can also do this with cheesecloth if you don't have a strainer, and kind of put it in the cheesecloth and kind of squish it, or strain it out that way and kind of squish it out. And this takes a little bit of time just to keep working at it and get all the moisture out that you can. Again, I'm not really pressing, I'm just kind of stirring back and forth and trying to clear off the pores on the bottom to allow more moisture to get out. So I'm going to put this on pause for a sec because I don't want that to burn. So I'm going to go flip the, go stir up the granola, and then we'll put it back in for another few minutes. So, got 10 more minutes on that. I'm going to keep stirring this, getting the moisture out of this. And now I can start to press a little bit and see if there's any more moisture. It's looking like it's pretty much done. A couple more drops coming out, but not much. So now what you're left over with is kind of this like almond nut paste. I've tried to do a lot with this to not waste it. I've tried putting it in baked goods and doing all kinds of things. Nothing has come out like amazing. It's been okay. So if anybody out there wants to experiment with this nut paste and what to do with it and finds a recipe that's really good, let me know, because I don't like I compost it, so it's not a total waste. But I would like to do something with it. The best thing I found so far is to just put it in smoothies. But because you've already taken out a lot of the tasty parts that are in the milk, it's kind of like it gives it a different flavor than just straight up almond and a different consistency too. So again, if you come up with something, let me know. Yeah, I would love to have something on hand to tell people to do with it. All right. So that's done. So now I'm going to a little bit more here. So I'm just going to rinse the blender because I'm going to do the final touches in the blender too. Alright, so the finishing touches for this are you're going to pour your mixture back in the blender. You don't have to do it in a blender, you can do it in any other mixing thing, but I like it because I can see how much I got on there. So, so I got just under 2 cups, and what you're going to do is then fill it back with water up until 3 cups. And then the last piece is just to do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. If you want it sweetened, you can add some maple syrup or some honey, but I like it unsweetened because I'm usually mixing it with something that's already sweet, like the granola. Or sorry, vanilla. And then I'm just going to pulse it for a second just to get it mixed. And there you have it, homemade nut milk, or as some people like to call it, homemade nut beverage, since I guess it's not a milk from an animal. And it's so creamy, it's so good, it's really good fresh. It stores in the fridge for a couple of days, but it does go bad after a couple of days. So if you're making a big batch, you can also freeze it in pint jars and kind of take it as you need it. And then you don't have to make it all the time. But 3 cups is a pretty good amount. I mean, that's like, you know, even you get like 32 ounces in a container. So, you know, it's a little bit less than that. And you can also make double batches, make different nuts, and it's really good. All right, so we have just about 5 minutes. So I'm going to throw that in just 2 minutes. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Thank you so much to those who have donated to Health Leads. I really appreciate it. It's awesome. It's a great organization. healthcare accessibility is something that's really near and dear to my heart. Being in a healthcare industry that isn't covered by insurance in most places, it makes it really inaccessible for people to come see me and to see doctors in general. There's a lot of different reasons why folks have a hard time. So if you're not familiar with this concept of health disparities, people may have a hard time getting access to transportation to take them to a doctor's office. They may be working multiple jobs just to make a living and therefore can't get the time off to go to the doctor. And then there's a lot of other barriers. I worked in a clinic where we had a predominantly Hispanic population, and I'm not a Spanish speaker, and so I had to have an interpreter interpret all of my visits, which there are literally things lost in translation. The medical interpreters maybe don't know the word for what I'm trying to say, or there's a cultural difference that I'm unaware of, or I've even had instances where the interpreter was inserting their own opinions and beliefs into what I was saying, and I didn't know until there was a Spanish speaker, a bilingual Spanish-English speaker in the room who made me aware of that. So there's a lot of different barriers to getting health access for a lot of different populations for a number of various reasons. And so organizations that can really bridge that gap are huge in allowing populations to really thrive and communities to really thrive from a healthcare perspective. So thank you to those who donated. And yeah, I think it's time for me to throw in the seats. So at this point, too, you're going to be wanting to watch or at least pay attention to what's going on in your oven, because you don't want to overcook the granola or the extra seeds that you threw in there. And so just kind of keep an eye or an ear out or smell. I've noticed when I'm on the overcooking it side, I can smell it before I notice anything, that it's kind of a little burnt. Some people like that, so if you want to leave it in a little bit longer and get that little crispy flavor, go for it. Otherwise, we're just about done. So if you guys have any suggestions or recipes you want to see, ingredients you're not quite sure how to use and you want to see a recipe done with it, feel free to drop a line either in the comments or you can send me a message. I'm open to ideas or anything. Otherwise, I just keep coming up with stuff that I think is good. My recipes all tend to be sugar-free, mostly vegan. I cook fish every so often, but mostly vegan. Trying to show you all how to cook really healthy recipes and in a way that's easy and attainable for most people. Yeah, so almost done. I'm trying to fill time if you guys don't notice, because we have just a couple minutes on the granola, and I want to let it finish. I will say that I'm starting to expand my California practice, so if any of my California friends and family out there would like to see me or have friends and family who want to come see me, shoot them my website. I'm doing a lot of telemedicine right now, just given the everything that's going on with COVID, so they don't even have to physically come in, and I'm really excited to be helping my California friends and family because it's my community that I grew up in, and I really like working with folks who want to really take charge of their health and really want to make changes in their life to better their health. Our medicine, natural medicine, is not often just a simple pill solution. There is no silver bullet, and it really is in your hands to take care of your health. And so I just want to help be a guide for people who are interested in doing that. So if that is you or anyone you love, feel free to shoot me a message. I have a friends and family discount from all my Facebook friends and family. So if you're interested. And then I also have a sliding scale for those who don't have the resources to see me cash for my California people. In Oregon, I'm covered by insurance, most insurances, so you can come see me on your insurance plan in Oregon. So, all right. Just about done. So I don't hear the pumpkin seeds popping yet, which is a really good sign. I have definitely burnt an entire batch of pumpkin seeds before, so I'm happy that I'm not doing that today in front of you guys, because that would be unfortunate. All right. So I just want to show you guys what this looks like. So now we got this golden brown, yummy looking granola. And you do want to just let it sit and cool on the tray for a little bit. It kind of does its final baking there. So I do have some pre-made stuff that I made another batch. And I'm going to enjoy a bowl of cereal and milk. So that's what I made today. So we got our nut milk and we got our granola. Cheers. Thank you all for joining me again for this week. Stay tuned, and I'll be coming back in another 2 weeks to do another recipe. Thanks so much, and take care.